All right, let me see then. I'm going to go with one that's going to seem like a boomer tick, but it isn't actually. This isn't it. If you notice, one thing I do like in sports and esports is I think there are certain stats have like strong correlations. I think there are certain things just don't show up in stats though. And so this player I think is a perfect example. And I'm not going to do, it's not Udonis Haslam and like that take of like make him the 28th player on the bet. Like that's such a bad take, guys. Because I know what you mean by that, but like even he at the end had nothing in the tag. He played about 15 years extra because he almost became a meme. It's just going to be Steven Adams, the one that everyone will know from the Thunder, the giant Aussie guy who just has a ridiculous like, I mean, he literally looks like a Greek god. If people don't know, he looks like he just came out of like some sort of mythos, like he's outrageous, isn't he? But the thing is, the reason I say I think that this guy's not a stats player is because this is where, like, I don't care what the numbers say on the paper. Like, first of all, this guy seems to actually be the ultimate, like, glue guy player, by the way. He's just a player who never complains. His physical strength is actually absurd, mate. Like, you can't, obviously there's no stat for this in the NBA, but, like, I don't care, like, if someone else has the same rebounds and blocks. And, like, this is one of those guys where, like, it wouldn't even be worth him trying to take a charge. No one could ever knock this guy over. Like, LeBron could actually run full speed in this guy, and he could just take it. I'm telling you right now, he's that absurd. Like, his physical strength is mental, and he's definitely not just from the gym either, mate. He just looks like one of those people who's like built of oak, if you know what I mean. But the thing to me is, from all the teams I've seen him in, he is the ultimate player, like I say, who doesn't seem like he has any actual ego about like his position. He's one of those players, a bit like the Rudy Gobert angle. They don't even seem to care about offense, mate. If you want to take all the shots, they're fine with that. They just do their shit. And so this is a guy where, like, yes, he's obviously going to be like your bench player if you have him, and he's at the end of his career now in that sense. He's not going to have some big leap up in ability. But people underestimate, like, this is why I hate those discussions about stars. It's like, bro, who's on their team? It's not like LeBron had the same fucking 15 people with him every season. Like, it's pretty relevant who's playing like the four, or who his backup point guard is, or who comes in at the end of the game, who shoots free throw. You know what? These are all things I need to know. They're not playing 1v1. So this is one of those guys where, like, you're never going to see on paper, like, gotta have this person. But if we were doing one of those drafts and we're getting down there and we're rounding out our bench, this is the sort of player I had. Because, mate, I think they actually do add quite a lot. I think they're actually underrated sorts of players. Like, there aren't, put it this way, there are not many physical specimens like this guy in the NBA. He's outrageous.
Where I would instantly compare what Steven Adams has been doing to any player that I've watched much more carefully, I kind of see him as like Andrew Bogut, where he was just really great screen setter, actually pretty good if you just kind of hand him the ball and kind of try to wrap around him. Like what I think of now with Adams that's so cool is that the way that Ja Morant can almost have seemingly 3 feet more of space because he's getting a screen off of what Adams is doing. And speaking of people that are just selfless, what was so ridiculous about that Westbrook season where he was able to find the triple-double average as he took MVP was off of the back of a lot of Steven Adams making way for Russell Westbrook to get the rebound. If
people don't know, this guy is also an absurd rebounder. Like, he's one of these fuckers who unironically can just like average like over 3 offensive rebounds a game, which is like, by the way, I still think that is the most underrated stat in basketball is the offensive rebound, mate. Like, I don't think plebs get it. You miss your shot and get it back. Like, that's like, that should be the fucking holy grail right there. Because when teams don't have people who are good on the boards, mate, I can't handle it. It's like, this is the most fundamental part of the game.
It feels like the new school style where people are just so less willing to crash the glass does kind of feel empty in a lot of ways.
Yes.
How it's so like, oh, the physicality of this game is moving away and it's more becoming all about
Did you see, I don't know if you saw this, because I thought this was fake at first, but apparently it's real. Apparently there's some player, I can't remember who though, I think it's someone like not that famous, like Lou Williams or something, you know. There was some player who played with Kobe at the end who sent him, because it's obviously before he died, on Instagram, like, you know, a picture on his DM, and it's a mad picture, one of those ones where Kobe's like, you know, fading away as like 2 defenders are like right in his face, right? Yeah. And he just sent it to Kobe and just said like, ha ha ha, or something. And then Kobe had actually replied on Instagram. Have you seen this picture I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Kobe had actually replied, this is why it's so sick, and it just said something like, you know, should be an easy putback for whoever gets in if I miss then. Because like his logic is, if I've got 2 people guarding me, there's only 3 other defenders. Like, obviously you should get the rebound in it. Which is like, obviously that's the ridiculous extreme. That doesn't work, but I agree. Because in the modern day, dude, this is where actually they have sort of let that like 3-point shooting thing go too far. They really do have the mentality now of like, right, we missed our shot, just run back. It's like we just better get back on defense. Like, what? You go for the fucking ball, yeah.
Yeah, that's where like I think the analytics era has gone too far also, where I think there's some number about, well, if we actually hustle back on defense as opposed to gamble for an offensive rebound, our likelihood is X% higher that we're going to stop the next play from happening. But I feel like the implied risk and everything, I'm sure that they've ran the numbers to come up with this kind of decision, but at the same time, it feels like people aren't even trying, and yet there are people that come up in the NBA space with this certain skill set, and they just follow the coaching driven by analytics as opposed to actually maybe using their personnel who could find a couple more offensive rebounds per game. But yeah, it's just one of those coaching deals, and why this whole this whole era of basketball and for that matter sports being air quotes figured out kind of leads to teams feeling very samey, and you're not getting as much in terms of idiosyncratic characteristics team to team. Sometimes if you turn on a random game day to day now on League Pass, you're watching, sometimes I'm watching two teams and I'm like, there's nothing that is a strong characteristic for either of these two teams playing, because I feel like I'm just seeing space and pace, trying to kick out to the corner three, and if you don't get an inside shot, it's just over. Like, what is it? Daryl Morey with the Rockets just ruined this game. The heat maps now are just literally all around the 3-point line or a layup. It's just like, come on, yo.
Oh, they did. Sadly, even though if people at the time actually were battling him because he was the original analytics guy, the joke is they all copied him now. Like, essentially everyone just did what he did. It's ridiculous. Yeah. By the way, the other thing about the Steven Adams guy, I just looked it up right now. Mate, one thing people don't often know is a lot of like weights and actually, and sometimes even the heights are wrong in the NBA, because a lot of them, like for the old school players, for example, apparently were just when you're a rookie, it's like whatever they originally measured you at, and they don't update them. But like, I'm assuming in the modern day, they do update them each season and do like a check or whatever, you know. Steven Adams is listed as 265 pounds. Now, all I'm going to tell anyone listening to this podcast, if you don't know what I'm talking about, pull up a Google image, and he is not fat in any context. Like, pull it up right now. Like, he just actually for real has those like legs that are like, you know, like the size of my head, basically, like outrageous, like just absolute like oak trees, like I say, and outrageous in it.
I mean, if they didn't get Jason Momoa to play Poseidon in these newer
movies, he could easily do it, couldn't he? Yeah.
Steven Adams is the
He even looks like Jason Momoa. Put it this way, in a movie, Jason Momoa would play him, basically. Like, he actually is that guy. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. They're honestly like the same person.
And this is also where I actually do think that, like, essentially as a tangent, because that's what our show's about. One thing I'll say is this, on the whole tangent of like the 3-point shooting and the small ball angle, the part I've talked about this in the past when I talked about like the death of the mid-range game, which I actually think is an incredible flaw. Like, I do think LeBron looks really silly when he doesn't actually look like he practices a mid-range game, so he can't win games for you except for a 3-yard drive, right? The reason why I hate that is because going along with that, I feel like the problem is small ball works right until it doesn't, and when it doesn't, it's dog shit. Like, I've always said this, mate. Everyone who tells you that Game 7 between the Warriors and the Cavs was the best, it's dog shit. The fourth quarter is so bad. It's just people missing shots for like 6 straight minutes for real. Yeah. Basically, until Kyrie Irving hits that shot, it's both teams scoring no points, and it's some of the best 3-point shooters ever just whiffing like a motherfucker because they are under so much pressure. Even the best 3-point shooters ever can't on command actually hit the shots. Whereas like one, you're just closer if you're taking a mid-range game. So it's not like the shot becomes easy. First of all, your percentages are up anyway, and then secondly, you're just closer to the basket. And then thirdly, the point I was going to get to here is this is where players like this actually are underrated in my opinion. Because when you have really tall, strong people, mate, at the end of a big playoff basketball game, there's a reason why the refs don't call the fouls super easily. Because like you actually have to try and score a basket now. Like we'll just set up defensively. You do something. You're not going to get it for free. And actually having like big players or depth or size is underrated in that scenario. In the same way as having good mid-range players is like, that is the easiest way to win a game, or in this case, block a game being won. It's just having people who actually like are physically intimidating, can stop you just doing a layup. Like that's sort of underrated use, because like you're saying, in an 82 game season, it doesn't matter that much. People aren't playing playoff basketball in the regular season. It is up and down. You can just essentially pump your numbers, but basketball in the NBA in the playoffs does get different in the more important games. So I always thought thought this guy was underrated, mate. I always thought he could be on loads of teams. And like I said, seems like a mega amiable individual too, even though actually if you look at him, you'd expect this would be a mean person, wouldn't you? But he actually seems fucking super chill, mate. He seems like a super cool teammate as well.
He seems to have a pretty good personality. I just looked him up and actually kind of random and not really related to anything, but we actually share we were born on the same day, actually, him and I. Okay. Interestingly enough. But nothing more to it.
Oh, he's actually from New Zealand, apparently. So technically, I know they hate it when you say like they're from Australia, from New Zealand. But the problem is, none of us know the difference. Like, here's my joke for you people from New Zealand, right? We do know the difference, as in, if an Australian guy spoke and then a New Zealand guy spoke, I'd know which one was which. But that's also kind of like if you go to the restaurant and you get that Diet Coke. Is this diet though? But if you try that's definitely diet. If you try the full sugar one, you'll know instantly if it is. But before, you could get tricked into it, couldn't you? You could sometimes you can tell I'm not sure if it is or isn't, but you'll know soon. So he's actually from New Zealand, apparently, so he's a Kiwi. Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, just to get back to the Jason Momoa comparison, Jason Momoa looks like an absolute unit in every movie that he's in, but Steven Adams is actually 7 inches taller than him and 50 pounds heavier than him. I
would love to see a picture of them side by side.
Yeah, I know.
Because you know that picture back in the day where Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie Conan was with like Andre the Giant and Wilt Chamberlain, and bro, Arnold looks like it's tiny next to them because like they're fucking actual enormous. Like so they're just like stood next to Arnold and he looks like a bitch. Like I want to see Steven Adams next to Jason Momoa, just sort of like patting him on the head or something like, all right, mate. That would actually be amazing because you're right, he must be so much bigger. Because that's the thing people never understand. Like I've always said this, the best go-to is obviously Allen Iverson. You have to tell people Allen Iverson's 6 foot tall. Like we just think he's like a short ass because he played in the NBA. Like in real life, he's actually tall. What are you talking about? You know?
But he's looks so short. But he's also, people say he probably was even 5'11" or something like that.
Could be. I could believe it. Put it that way.
Yeah.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.